now.
All right. Welcome,
It's
everyone.
Not there yet,
oh, sorry.
it's
Tell me
still
when.
not that. Yeah, 88%, 90%. Okay, we're live.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the little bit of a delay. We have some technical difficulties. No matter how many dry runs or dress rehearsals you have, obviously something will go wrong on the day. So we have a little kludgy patch where a couple of our panelists are patched in a different method. So bear with us, and you might hear a little bit of an echo, or you might hear some funny sounds, but we're all here and we're all pleased to present the PeopleSoft community shares their vision for world-class travel and expense management. And I need to say the safe harbor because inadvertently or on purpose, we might mention some of the things that are coming in a future release, but keep in mind that this is the vision, the strategy of our customers and our partners. So it's their view on what their organization might need going forward in their future life. So we have two moderators today. I'm Shar Jorgensen, and Kelly, one of my teammates, is going to help with the questions. And we ask, we're going to cover probably 4 or 5 topics, and the panelists are going to weigh in on those topics. And as you have questions about that topic, you might want to put them in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. And then Kelly will be monitoring the Q&A, and he'll bring them up in context with the topic that we're covering. So what the goal of this presentation is not to kill you with PowerPoint and tell you what we're doing, what we've done, but it really allows our community of customers, some really great customers, to put a strategy hat on and say, you know, our organization to be successful going forward really needs this type of functionality, and this is what we're thinking. And this is, you know, the thought leadership piece that we were looking for, where it's not necessarily very, very tactical enhancements, but really more strategic, that's going to help the organization get to world-class travel and expense management. And that's the whole thing, is just managing those expenses. And from our partners, we have, you know, one of our partners with us. Brandy sees a lot of trends and practices when they do implementations, when they talk to customers, and what are they seeing out there across industries. So not necessarily in just healthcare, where we have our representatives today, but in other industries for achieving control of their travel and expense spend. And again, this could be, you know, future desire, what they'd like to see in the future. But we did notice that between everybody, there was sort of some common threads that came through. So those are the topics that we're going to talk about today. So to start off, I'm going to have our panelists and our partner introduce themselves, give you a little bit of background on their company, what they're doing, what products they have installed, and you know, everybody has a chance to kind of set the stage for what they're doing, where we talk about the future. So first up is Encompass Health panelists, Ashley and Allison. So ladies, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Ashley Sheeden is one of the members of my accounting systems and controls team, and I am the vice president of accounting systems and controls. My name is Allison Pritchett. As part of this department, we work with our business users on all of our financial applications. So we're instrumental in implementing new applications, implementing new requirements, taking advantage of new functionality that's available, and we also help them manage all of the upgrades that we do for any of our Oracle products, as well as a few other applications. In addition to that, I'm over the AP, or Accounts Payable department, for the inpatient rehab line of business. So I get a couple of different perspectives on the topic that we're going to talk about today.
I'm going to mention that everybody on the panel has very bravely put their email addresses, and we are posting this out to the Quest site. So if you have questions or you have things that you would like to chime in or discuss with our panelists, their information is available. So, Allison, did you want to talk about Encompass Health and what you do?
Sure. Just to give you a little bit of background on our company, we're the leading provider of inpatient rehabilitation care and home-based care. So we really have two lines of business. Our inpatient rehab currently has 137 hospitals that are represented in 35 states and in Puerto Rico. And our home health and hospice line of business has 241 home health locations, 82 hospice sites, and they're in 31 states. And so one of the distinctions I want to make here is that our home health and hospice line of business has been a part of our organization for about 6 years now. And that'll really take us into the next slide, which is to talk about our Oracle footprint. So we're on PeopleSoft Financials version 9.2. We're currently operating under PUM 27, and we'll move to PUM 39 in May. We're on PeopleTools 8.5.7, and we're going to PeopleTools 8.5.8 in August of this year. Just to give a little bit of background, we typically do one PUM upgrade and one PeopleTools upgrade each year. The current modules that we're running, we have accounts payable, asset management, general ledger, expenses, lease administration, AR and billing only for the purposes of lease administration, bank reconciliation, project costing, and program management. And all of those modules are utilized by our inpatient rehab line of business. Our home health and hospice division came on just under 2 years ago onto PeopleSoft Financials, and they currently use general ledger, accounts payable, and bank reconciliation. Those lines of business run PeopleSoft HCM 9.2, and we upgraded this month to PUM 37, and they too will do an upgrade to their PeopleTools to 8.5.8 in July, but we're currently on 8.5.7. We also run Hyperion Financial Management, the on-premise version. We're on 11.2.2 with an upgrade in May to 11.2.4 for both lines of business. And then Hyperion Planning is also on-premise with an upgrade slated for this year, but currently we're on 11.1.2. One thing to note there, our planning application has been used by our inpatient group for a number of years, and we're getting ready to go live with it in August for home health and hospice. So they'll begin using it in August of 2021 for their 2022 budget cycle. Screen, please. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley to talk about our current travel and expenses module.
Hi, I'm Ashley Shooten, as Allison mentioned, on her accounting systems and controls team. We implemented expenses with our inpatient division in 2009. We have two main approval workflows, one for travel and one for non-travel. They route based on our hospital location, which is the equivalent of our chart field operating unit. And in the home office, they route by department. We do use My Wallet for our corporate travel cards. And we've chosen to reimburse through our AP group so that we could reimburse more frequently. So we run an expense pay cycle in AP twice a week on Tuesday and on Friday. About 2 years ago, we began using the attachment functionality for receipts. We used a third-party application up to that point. And we also have a customization added to the application for the business purpose, which is sort of the highest level in the header of the expense report, to the expense line. So we have them linked together where only certain lines are available for the business purpose chosen. We implemented per diems in 2015 for meals only. And we originally had thought to use travel authorizations, but we have not utilized it at this point. We've got some stats on the slide. obviously showing our our expense reports processed per year. You see there was quite a dip in 2020, but nearly 47,000 reports in 2019 and about 27,000 reports in 2020. And we generally average 7 to 9 day from submission to payment.
Thanks, ladies. Gary, do you want to talk about Hackensack?
Yes. Hi, I'm Gary Wilhelm, the Vice President of Business Application at Hackensack Meridian Health in New Jersey. Next slide. Kelly, can you go? There we go. So we're the leading non-for-profit organization in New Jersey. We have 13 hospitals, including 2 academic medical centers, 2 children's hospitals, and 9 community hospitals. If you can go to the next slide, Kelly. Just to give you a little flavor for where we're located mostly in the northeast corner and along the coast, the eastern coast of New Jersey, probably about 3/4 of the way down the shore. Next slide, Kelly. And our footprint is we have PeopleSoft Financials 9.2. We're on PUM 32, running PeopleTools 8.5.7. We're going to 8.5.8 at the end of May. And our current modules are accounts payable, accounts receivable, asset management, contracts, e-settlement, e-supplier contracts, census, general ledger, grants, inventory, lease administration, and as you can read, quite a broad range of modules we offer for financials. On HCM, we are on 9.2, PUM 33, and we just went to PeopleTools 8.5.8 this past weekend. And we're running absence management, base benefits, and admin, compensation, e-benefits, e-comp, e-pay, e-performance, e-profile, e-profile management desktop, human resources, North America payroll, the payroll interface, and time and labor. And then we just went live last summer on Campus 9.2 running PUM 18. They're going to be upgrading to PeopleTools 8.5.8 this weekend. And we're running academic advising, admissions, campus community, campus self-service, financial aid, student administration, student financials, and student records currently at the school. Next slide, please. So we went live back on March 15, 2020 on expenses. We have a travel authorization form, which replaced our paper forms that used to get routed internally for signature. Those travel authorizations, when they're approved, are sent by a secure email to our travel agency. So there's no more faxing and checking where the fax is. That all goes through email. And then our travel authorization forms provide enhanced audit capabilities where if you say you put in for no airfare and then you submit an expense form with the airfare, that'll come up at a flag through our audits because it wasn't marked on the original travel authorization form. We also use the My Wallet for corporate credit cards. We're a little different here. We're reimbursed through payroll and through accounts payable for non-team members. So our payroll is for our team members and our non-team members get paid through accounts payable. We expense biweekly. We have the attached functionality that PeopleSoft use for receipts. And we are using analytic tiles for expense and travel authorization forms, as well as on dashboards for team members to look at where their travel expense forms are and if they've been reimbursed. And we're also integrated with Google Maps for mileage reimbursement. So when you put the to and from address, Google Maps is actually calculating the mileage reimbursement for you. And the law just listed a total expense reports. In 2020, we went live in March. We had 11,000 expense forms submitted, and we average about 1,120. In 2021, even with COVID, we're still on pace to average about 1,134 expense reports a month. Next slide, please. And I just gave a screenshot. This is kind of our dashboard for the HMH expenses. So you can see it's all fluid, and team, get through it via your phone, through desktop, no matter what device you're using. Our vision is, no matter what device you're using, we'll have PeopleSoft expressed in that format, and you should see the same look and feel through whatever app you're using at that point. Next slide. I think I'm handing off to Randy here.
Yes, Randy,
Yes.
our partner. Could you do a little bit of an intro and a background?
Sure. Randy Johnson, Vice President over at Spear & C. I know most of the financials modules, expert in a lot of the core GL, AP, all procure to pay expenses, ESA modules. And that stems from the fact that at one point in time, I thought I was going to be an audit partner at KPMG. I got a CPA and then decided I didn't like auditing and got into systems implementation back in the 90s. And it was PeopleSoft then, and the rest is history. If you have LinkedIn on your phone, you could just quick QR my code there, and we'll be instantly connected. I am accepting all connection requests, and of course, there's my email. Let's see what else we've got here on next slides. I might have put a few in. We're across the country. In fact, soon we'll be opening up an office in Canada, our first. But we're in every time zone in the continental United States, had some projects over in Hawaii for a period of time. And this is where we are. Our first one was over in San Francisco on Spear Street, and our name became Spear MC. Let's go to the next slide. There's one in here that builds, and I want to get past it. We are proud to be Gartner recognized firm on our PeopleSoft initiatives. And in fact, PeopleSoft is still well over 95% of PeerMC's business, and we expect that to continue to be the case into the future. Next slide. Let's see. Actually, can you hit the next slide again? Because I think we have this slide in here twice. Our specialties, we don't, that's fine. Our specialties, Oracle PeopleSoft, and we started off doing a lot of training, staff aug. We became a full services implementation integration partner. We can resell PeopleSoft applications. We are an authorized reseller with a public sector addendum. So even public sector entities, if they're looking for additional modules, we are able to do that. We do a lot of managed services these days, supporting infrastructure, sometimes moving you from on-prem to Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and then managing that technical background or managing functional. It really is dependent on what needs you have. The few areas that we do have expertise in that are not PeopleSoft are Hyperion and OBIEE, and now Kibana Analytics. Kibana really being related to PeopleSoft, and the fact that you have legal license rights to run Kibana. So those are the areas that we're in. Let's see if we can get past this next slide real quickly. You might have to skip this one. There's a very slow build on it. Thank you. This is perfect. So what other services we do? We're doing a lot of road mapping and optimization efforts for our customers these days. Many, if not most, are pretty mature, and without the roadmap, without really understanding where you're going, it's going to be hard to know if you've optimized, if you got there. And so we're helping our customers understand all of the concurrent things that you can be doing in areas, beginning with what your pain points are and really working to alleviate those and get into a regular cadence where you're, as our esteemed panelists are doing accurately, staying current and taking advantage of the functionality that is available with all of the maintenance dollars that you're all paying. You should be taking advantage of all of the new features and functions. So that's just a summary of the types of things we do. Yeah, we've done a lot of PeopleSoft expenses implementations. So I'll be giving you my insights on those as we continue. All right, that's it. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. When we sent out the call to our customers and to our partner, we said, what are some of the things that your company is thinking about that you need to be looking at for the future? And we got back some really interesting topics. And so we looked for the ones that were a common thread. And so we put together this list. We have about 4 or 5 topics that we'd like to discuss. And when you hear them, kind of look at them as, is this something that our company could use as well? Is this something that we should be thinking about as well? Because there were some really cool things that this group is expecting and wanting in their environments. So our panelists are going to share their views on 4 or 5 topics. Kelly is going to monitor the Q&A. So if you have a question specifically for one of the panelists, if you could put in the Q&A, for instance, Gary, and then put your question, or Allison or Ashley, put your question. Let's start. So one of the questions that or one of the topics that seemed to have a common thread was controlling costs from mileage reimbursement. So managing the mileage reimbursement process, because it was kind of important in their environments to get a handle on that. So I'm going to ask ladies first. What are your thoughts around what you'd like to see or what you'd like to see happen, and who would this be directed at?
So this is Ashley. For mileage reimbursement, one of the things that we've utilized internally for mileage is a log. We have some marketing directors and other roles that travel between our hospitals fairly consistently. And so instead of them having to report detailed mileage expense lines, we've asked them to complete like a paper log. And then they just record one expense line with total mileage for up to a month period of time. And then they attach that log as a receipt, sort of, and documentation supporting their mileage. Because that is an external log, we would love to see something like that put into the application. We would love to, for our users to be able to keep up and track where they're going, but then not have to report that as potentially 30 lines in a month if they're doing it day to day, or even more than that. So, and because we're doing an external log, we have not taken advantage of any of the map features. That is something we would definitely be interested in using. One of our considerations would be, as we roll that out to our home health group, we know it would be incredibly helpful for documentation, but we'd have to be very mindful of privacy of information and how we would get around entering patient locations, patient homes into a mileage log to be recorded.
Sure. So Gary, you had some thoughts around, what Encompass Health is doing with the log, but you also have some thoughts around the whole mileage calculation and specific tools for that. Could you share that?
Yeah, so we integrated into Google Maps, or the mileage, and also gave you a map. So we went with the integration into Google, and that calculates out your mileage. You put the to and from and the address, and it automatically gives you the mileage based on what Google is calculating at that point. So, the employee doesn't have to worry about, calculating it manually or going to, a different app to try to calculate that mileage is calculated for them. What we're looking to do is add on the actual mapping, showing you the route that Google has mapped in an image into expenses as well.
So do you let your the users override what's calculated, or do they have to take what's calculated by Google?
It's taking what's calculated through the mileage reimbursement.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much you've saved in mileage reimbursements since you've implemented this tool?
No, that was something we weren't tracking. It's kind of difficult to say, what was an input versus what was, calculated through the Google Maps.
Yeah.
It's kind of going back, and you have to go back and kind of pull all those expense reports then and try to remap it.
Yeah.
But we are tracking, how many expense reports we're seeing come through. And like I said, the nice feature is that, there's more audit capabilities that we've built into the expenses in PeopleSoft, having the travel authorization form there. We're able to do more proactive, analytics for the departments, as well as finance or accounts payable.
And then Randy, when you're out with customers or you're dealing with customers, do you find that mileage is a concern, and are they looking for tools to control that part of their spend?
Yeah, I think it's the most common expense type that's booked is mileage. There's lots of expenses users where that's the only type of expense that they ever incur. And making anything easier for those users is always a goal. The Google Map integration that Hackensack did was a great example of making life easier. Being able to save those points and say, okay, this location is my home, so that you can pull that in more quickly is also something that Hackensack is either doing or already has done, and I'm getting most of my customers asking for that kind of feature. Mm-hmm. The jury's out on whether or not having an image of the actual map is helpful or not. What might be helpful is if it's not a standard trip, right? In other words, if the 2 points are office to office, those are pre-saved destinations, and there's a standard mileage no matter what route you take that you get reimbursed, versus non-standard if you are driving to a conference or something where the map might be required as an attachment. We're seeing mixed bag in our clients, whether or not they think the image of the map is a worthwhile, call it receipt attachment. But I tell you what users do enjoy is using their mobile device for expense reports. Yeah. And so if you've cracked the code on how to authenticate users on their mobile device and being logged into PeopleSoft, regardless of the expense type, the users love to be able to snap a picture of the receipt right onto their phone and add it to the expense line immediately. Yeah. For us, it's probably the module that is helping drive mobile adoption of PeopleSoft more than any other.
Got it. Kelly, are there any questions that came through the Q&A for this particular topic?
No questions so far, Shar. So I think we can move on to the next topic.
I'll go to the next one. A common theme between the panel was the digital transformation from paper to manual processes. And Gary mentioned that, they've done away with the manual form, their travel authorization. But one of the topics that came up with across that was OCR for their business documents, and electronic forms, signatures, submission, all of those things. And so how are you tackling that, or how do you envision that happening in your world? And I'll go to the ladies again first. Allison or Ashley, did you want to chime in on that?
Sure. This is Allison Pritchett again. And so in talking about how we can tackle automation and just overall the process for our travelers of how do we make this easier on them, so this, expense reporting isn't such a burden. We all know it's not a fun process, but certainly a necessary one. And we have talked about OCR. We want to capture the expenses or the receipts as we're going through our trips. So assuming you could do that and have an OCR capability, it would certainly be nice for, some technology to read that receipt and do a couple of things. Our frequent travelers for Encompass Health have a corporate card. And so all of their transactions that are put on their corporate card already hit the My Wallet area for them to then select and pull into the expense report. So it'd be nice if they could, look at those receipts and use OCR to potentially match that up to something that's in My Wallet, or to create something similar to My Wallet with just receipts for those users that don't have a corporate card. So in essence, they would, be able to kind of see their expense report with some data from the OCR that would capture, the day of the receipt, potentially, assign some business expense line logic and a totals amount. So we could see that, being a long-term goal of ours to make it, easier on that traveler. And in the way of approvals, we're getting ready to take advantage of the fluid approvals. We're rolling that out in May, so that's going to be nice for our just overall approvers, because they'll have a tile that'll give them kind of a one-stop place to go in and see anything that's out there in their expense queue and other areas of the application, supplier requests, payment requests, journal approvals, whatever they have the ability and security to approve will all be in one spot. But again, this is something that we're looking at, and they can take advantage of from an Encompass self-issued device. So we're certainly interested long-term in kind of overcoming those security challenges that Gary mentioned, and being able to do it from personal phones as well, via an app or whatever we need to make this whole travel and expense capture a little bit easier for our users.
Yeah. So Gary, what are your thoughts on that?
So
How to make it easier, I guess.
I think, we've definitely improved what we had previously. You're able to use the workflow to track, where your travel authorization form is, rather than, calling, is it with the directors, with the vice president? Did it get lost in the inter office? So I think, we're looking to even add more automation. We're using the attachments to attach your expense reports or your expenses right into, you can do it right from your phone, or you can do it from a desktop. So you can add that right into the system. And, we're looking to get feedback, what would the, team member population like to see us add to the system, and, kind of tailor the digital piece to what they're looking for that is manual to them at this point. I think, we've also integrated, we did the NPI number for physicians. So we actually created a table. So we've linked that right up, so you don't have to look that up. But I think some of the things we'd like to see then is, integrating into HCM, and, not having to type in a team member's name, but actually just being able to select a team member from, the HR system.
Yeah. So when you're doing a dinner expense, you and you're the manager, you want to just include all your team members as per the org chart on that dinner.
Just be able to select, team members, or, rather than have to type their names in.
Yeah. Okay.
And this way it'll bring the title in as well. So, as AP is looking through it, it's, they have all that information rather than what was typed in. And are you typing the correct team member's name? If there's multiple team members with the same last name or first name, could have, did we select, who is that? And did we select the right person?
Well, I would ask the whole panel if using a spoken or chatbot type of interface to get those expense rows into either the wallet or to an expense report, just by prompting for, minimal pieces of information, would that be something that you can envision your organization leveraging? And Randy, if you have customers that have, started on that path, we'd certainly like to hear about it. So another way of entering, creating expense reports and making it easier is using a chatbot, either spoken or typing in a conversational way.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Char.
Yeah.
So no one yet has implemented, but we do have a few of our customers that are looking into using chatbots across their financials application. I think they might start on the HCM side, and then drive it over to the casual user community. So they're really the two sort of buckets of users that are typically called out for wanting chatbots are requisitioners in e-procurement and expense users in expenses.
Right.
Would anything we can do to make their lives easier in entering expense reports? Sometimes it's as simple as just helping guide them on which expense type to select on their expense line. Folks that maybe only do 1 or 2 expense reports a year would be the ones benefiting most from the chatbot functionality. And we have a client up in Northern California that is implementing Oracle guided learning with PeopleSoft, and so similar to the old UPK, walk me through a transaction type of a thing, but much more modern and not limited to staying within the PeopleSoft domain. Those features and functions as well. I know Hackensack has a series of recorded videos that are educational for users. So these things, anything you can do to support the to support the users in making their decisions, chatbots certainly right up there.
Well, I'm interested, and I think the audience might be interested in Encompass. Would that be something your organization would embrace? Is using, a simplified interaction either through voice or typing, using a chatbot to create expense rows? And the same, question to Gary: is that something that you could envision Hackensack embracing if it was available?
We have, sort of a very immature version maybe of this kind of implemented here. We have pop-up messages that answer, that kind of prompt our users through entering an expense report. We have the ability to turn them off for users that are, well-versed in how to do it. But we have the pop-up messages tied to certain click points when entering an expense report. If you choose a particular expense type, it reminds you to use the hotel wizard for a hotel. As you flip over to the summary and submit page, it prompts you and reminds you to attach your receipt. So those pop-up messages, I guess, kind of feel like an early chatbot, or sort of represent what a chatbot could do by prompting users as they're entering the report to make sure that they've got all the details that they need to be entered to ensure that they don't have the report sent back for revision. Obviously, I think it would be also very cool if, kind of utilizing the OCR with the, a scanned receipt, if you were prompted, it appears you have a receipt for gasoline. Would you like to add this as an expense line? I considered it somewhat with the voice bots on a phone, but again, I think we would have to have an app that wasn't, that didn't kind of scare our security folks, that maybe would come back in and link into PeopleSoft at a later time. I think that's our biggest concern for using on a mobile device at this point, but surely those will be overcome in the near future.
Yeah. Gary, how about Hackensack? What are your thoughts around embracing some of those technologies? Past OCR maybe.
Yeah, it's like, I was going to go through the chatbots. I could see us using it with help, but trying to envision how it would help us, enter an expense report. I guess each one seems pretty unique. Or each one is, each two has a little nuance to it, or maybe you could say, attach a receipt, and it would just attach the, go and look and how to attach the receipt. But I would envision the chatbots to be more there for, to help the team member get through the expense report, maybe answer the question more quickly than trying to go to, sometimes we have tiles with frequently asked questions and, instructional guides, and maybe the chatbot could be more useful for us as you're on the expense report. You don't have to leave the screen, that you can ask the chatbot the question and get the answer there while you're still on the screen, rather than having to flip between the screens at that point.
One of my, Randy here, one of my clients in the oil and gas industry down in Houston suggested that the chatbot could be used to turn on and off their mileage tracker while they're actually driving, and then and then automatically create the mileage entry in their expense report. And I thought that would be a really cool use case for chatbots.
That is. Kelly, is there anything coming in through the Q&A for this topic?
Not necessarily for this topic. There was and I'll go through the question for the panelists to answer. We often get a request for an offline app to enter their expenses because they're traveling, they're on their phone and not always connected to our network. Has anyone come up with a solution for this? And I would imagine this kind of goes back with what Randy was saying about, cracking the code of being able to access PeopleSoft, through the firewall. So anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, we're actually accessing it through the firewall, but I think that would be a nice feature to be able to, do your expense report when you're, say, on an airplane and you can't get to a connection, but still be able to enter the information into an app that then gets uploaded back into PeopleSoft. So I think something we're looking at. We haven't solved that at this point, but that's something that's intriguing to me at this point. Is how do I get those? Especially if you're traveling, and you're, like, say, traveling on a plane, you want to spend the time and just upload your receipts. That'd be a great opportunity to use the app offline when you're not connected.
Yeah.
And to that,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, to add to that, we do offer company issued devices to frequent travelers, but we find that many people want to use their personal device. They don't want to keep up with two separate devices. And so having some sort of offline app that we could allow people to use on their personal devices and somehow find a way to transmit the information into the application once they're, in our office or something, would be incredibly helpful. And I think really well received.
Yeah. Okay.
I think maybe even if we have a template, like a PeopleSoft form that could be just downloaded, and then when you connect back to the network, the form uploads into your wallet or something. Just a thought.
Right. Kelly, if there's no other questions, I'll go to the next topic. And
yes, go ahead and proceed.
Okay. This was about self-service and simplified analytics with real-time data to support data-driven decision-making. And there was kind of a thread of artificial intelligence and machine learning threaded through this as well. And one of the examples that Encompass gave was when an expense report is submitted, is the highest level of management submitting the expense report. And Ashley and Allison, do you want to, kind of expand on what you guys are looking for that?
Sure. Yes. So as a part of our policy, the most senior person at a group meal is responsible for picking up the check. It would be nice to identify if someone is violating that policy, whether it's simply a training issue or, something that needs to be discussed with them. And kind of in that same vein, if we could identify from a group meal attendee list and compare to other expense reports that maybe were submitted for the same event to make sure that the other people that were claimed on this group meal did not also enter a per diem for that meal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gary, any thoughts around what kind of actionable data-driven analytics are on your mind?
Well, that's one too. With the most senior member at the lunch or dinner, it's a question that was asked. That we have a checkbox on there for, but if we could get the integration, with the manager level from, HCM, that would be perfect. Because then, if you're, say, level 100 and level 200 is putting in for the reimbursement form, and there's a level 100 there, the level 100, that audit would flag and say, there was a senior member put on this, dinner and should have picked up the tab, not the level 200. So we have integration that would help us, because again, right now it's typing and then, it's kind of leaving it up to, manually looking up and seeing, who's on the list. And it just leaves a margin of error. If we could do it automated through the system, that would just help streamline and get the expense reports through the system a little more quickly.
And one of the analytics that you mentioned, and maybe Randy, you've done this for some customers, is being able to look at the whole approval flow from the time it's submitted, and it goes through all the different levels of approvals. You have multiple levels of approvers, to see where the bottlenecks are and what is the average for that process. Is that something, Randy, that you've encountered your customers asking for those kind of performance type of?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the users want to know where it is and who is the holdup. We even have a customer who has built a pivot grid on the individuals who take the longest amount of time to approve their expense reports, and it gets published to senior management, not everyone in the company, but it usually is a training issue. It might be a span of control issue where individuals have simply too many people that are travelers that report to them. But we're tracking how long at every level, and we are giving the expense user the visibility to see who has it and when, and give them an opportunity to give a little nudge. That's out there.
Sure, I'll jump in there with we've put some analytic tiles out there for accounts payable, on there for the team members. So like if I look at my tile, I could see how many of my expense reports are approved or how many are in process, and I can click on that and drill into them. And accounts payable can do the same from there and from the whole organization. And now that we have the data in the system, then we could actually start drilling into that, say where do we have a delay in a certain area or not? But now that it's in the system, it's easier for accounts payable to drill into those requests. But we did roll out with some analytics for them and some tiles so that they can see what's happening in the approval process or in the whole workflow.
Right. Allison or Ashley, is that something that you're keen on tracking as well as part of your actionable analytics, is monitoring all those levels?
Absolutely, Shar. This is Allison. As I put my AP hat on, because that's one of my other teams, we certainly are very vested in our service level agreements with our end users. So you saw on our intro slide that we monitor submission to pay. We actually track and look at each of the approval levels so that if we have a bottleneck, we can identify where that's occurring. First, this was very manual in how we're pulling it. We've got some queries built to help us with that. We're looking to do more real-time dashboards and analytics to get to look at this more frequently than we do currently. But yeah, we're really looking to see, are there users out there that need a little more prompting, a little more training? Do we need to add another, pay cycle for AP to run each week? Because you saw on average we were 7 to 9 days. That takes into account that delay in when we run that pay cycle. So that could prompt discussions about, do we need to do that more frequently? So we're certainly looking at and evaluating the analytics to see, what we can put in place that would help us, better perform and better track our data. We've also mentioned we'd love to have, send back reasons on those expense reports that we could dashboard, because that would really help us also highlight some training issues.
Right. I'm going to ask Christina, we're getting to the end of our allocated time. Could we run over a little bit since we were late in starting?
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. So if people can stay, I assume our panelists can stay. We just have a couple of more things that we'd like to talk about. And Kelly, were there any questions or anything that came through for this topic?
None at this time, sure.
Okay. The next topic that we were going to look at, and that came from all of you, since all of you have HCM, is the more flexible configuration of payment and reimbursement options. And I'll go with the ladies first, if that's something that you'd like to expound on.
Absolutely, Shar. This is currently it's at the installation level, so you determine if you want to pay or reimburse via payroll or AP. Just a little background, we have it set up for our inpatient division that we pay via AP. Now, we use Integration Broker to look at data, stored in HCM, so we pay the same way that the employee receives their paycheck. But we went with the option to, to pay through AP so that we could pay more frequently than every 2 weeks, which is what was the frequency of our pay cycle from a payroll perspective. And so this will be a key, discussion point as we look to our home health and hospice line of business and potentially bringing them onto the expense application. Currently, they'll have to agree to going and paying through AP and, and agree with that configuration decision. Whereas if this was at the BU level, we would have the flexibility to give them that configuration and design decision.
Okay. Gary, do you have some thoughts around this, I'm sure?
Yeah, I'm just trying to phrase it in there.
Were you thinking that that you'd even like it at a more granular level, maybe at the expense submitter level for that payment?
So for us, it's more at the we have it at department level, but getting down to the submitter level so that it would have the department to be able to be charged over to that department. So I think having it grinding down to the employee level would be perfect for us. And then, being able to then say, could this be reimbursed through AP or payroll? Having that select there, because, on the installation, it's either going to go through accounts payable or payroll. We had to put a customization in place to say, we're going to select payroll, but for non-team members, we want that to go through accounts payable. So having that flexibility, at the team member level to be able to choose where they're getting reimbursed would be, ideal for us.
Yeah. Randy, have you seen any customers that have, gone that route where they've put a more granular choice in for reimbursement?
Yeah, yes, I have, Shar, and it's always through customization, right? And to Gary's point, what happens is if you make the decision to pay through payroll, which there's pros and cons to all of them. One of the nice things about payroll is if you have a taxable event that is a reimbursable expense, but it's taxable, it's easier to have that show up on your paycheck. And there are certain rules in certain states that require you to tax receipt or to tax expense items if they're more than 60 days old. But let's not go down that route. If you choose payroll and you then want to start reimbursing non-employees, it becomes difficult, and that's where the option would be very, very handy. We've had to customize to get around that.
Yeah. Kelly, are there any comments or questions coming through the Q&A?
Not at this time, Shar.
Okay. Well, we've gone through the 5 topics that we had on board. I'm sure we could keep on talking for much longer, but we're sort of out of time. But I did want to point out that this deck will be posted out on our session, has information, and it has some important links. First of all, to the email, it has links for the emails of our panelists who graciously agreed to take emails. So you might, if you're interested in something that they've said, or you want to get together and kind of collaborate on a solution, their emails are going to be included, as well as where you can get more information. And for some of these things that we've heard today, they are perfect things to go for Kelly and I to go and put into the idea space, to get it into the idea space so that other customers can see it and vote on it. And it's pretty timely because we're going through a roadmap crafting exercise. And then, as soon as the conference is over, we'll be looking at what we want to do for the next 18 to 24 months. So it's very timely. So thanks to our panel. Thank you very, very much for sitting with us today and sharing your ideas, great ideas. And hopefully the audience got some food for thought, and they will also at some point weigh in on what they think of some of the topics that we brought up. Anything else, Kelly, that come through?
No, nothing else has come through, Shar.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, my esteemed panelists, and hope the rest of your conference as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shar.
Thank you, Char.